Well, hi everyone. I am back for another episode of the Tattoos and Toddlers podcast, and I have a very, very, very special guest from across the pond today. And I have the pleasure of introducing Adam to you guys. Adam, welcome to the podcast. Please introduce yourself. We have got to get to know you.
Hello. It's so good to be here. I'm Adam Gary. I am a poet. I'm the inaugural poet laureate for Surrey County, the county of Surrey here in the UK. I also do YouTube and workshops, independent workshops. That's how I met you, right, in the
Yes.
summer, which was great. I hope we're going to talk about that because that was just such an amazing time. And yeah, I do. Did I say I do YouTube? I do YouTube as
Yes.
well. So
And I was
just
nerding out. I was sorry to say I was nerding out on your you posted on Instagram that you're about to do it, and I'm like, I always miss it because I'm like, it'd be so interesting to sit with you on one of those because it's such an interesting stream, the ones I've tried to rewatch.
right. Oh, the conversing with poets. Yeah, they're good
Yes.
fun. They're good fun. They started out because I was so busy. I wasn't getting content out on my posting day, which is Tuesdays. So I figured, hey, let's do a live stream because I can just sit in front of the camera and hang out. And they were really, really popular. So we celebrated our 1 year like birthday of doing those streams just a couple of weeks ago. It's gone so quick, but they're
That
good
is
fun.
so fun. So fun. So yeah, we're going to get into it because, well, first of all, thanks for coming on today. I know we have different time zones, but I'm in my happy place here. You're in your happy place there. You even got out of your suit and put on your Harry Potter hoodie thing, whatever that is
Yeah.
you're wearing right now. It's so great because, and I've got my weirdo weddings on.
Nice.
So
Nice. Yeah, it's 10:30 at night here, so I apologize if I'm a bit slow this evening.
no, that's totally, totally fine.
And
Like I
that's my bad, by the way. I just want
yes.
to let everyone know that's my bad. It would have been earlier, but I messed up.
Yes, we had a slight time delay, and it's totally fine because that's kind of like how life can be sometimes, and things slip, and we deal with things all the time. And one of the questions I did have in regards to our time at Promoting Passion was as an artist, as artists, as creatives, how did you find your experience there? Because when I started thinking about you coming into this place, I thought to myself, is Adam going to approach this? Well, not only were you a speaker, but did you find yourself almost like creatively cross training in a way? Like not just writing, but were there other things that you got involved in that kind of like inspired you to creatively cross train?
Yeah, I think one of my biggest takeaways from PBC was it sounds silly and maybe not completely the point of it, but it was so important for me because I get so wrapped up in
Mm.
work. And I went to PPC for work, right? I was in work mode. And it also it's like a lot of you guys there were photographers and I was the poet coming into the circle and I didn't know how to navigate that at all. Um, and it wasn't until the evening of the exhibition where I kind of got round to meeting everyone at the tables. I was like, wow, these people are so cool. But also, wow, these people are so talented. Like, what? It's crazy. And then after that, I kind of just dropped the poet persona, right? And was just taking in all the talent and all the creativity. And that kind of I was a little bit guarded because again, I didn't know how to be. I was the poet in the room. And then I was just the creative. I became the creative. And what that allowed me to then like take on all the inspiration and yes, I was there to facilitate and to speak, but I was also then learning from you guys and relearning just how to be a creative and being passionate about what I do. I took that from you guys because as I say, I'm so work that I forget to be passionate. I mean, I am passionate, that goes without saying, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I
You know what I'm trying to
understand.
say. I I stopped being in work mode and just enjoyed being around fellow creatives and unbelievably talented ones at that as well.
And I think a lot of us, when we go to that, we're doing the same exact thing. And you put it very, very good word wise because I go there and I take off my other work hats as well because I'm still in the creative industry and I'm just like, I don't want to be, say, wedding photographer today, or I don't want to be mom, or I don't want to be anything else. Like, I just want to walk in here and just be a person. It's
Mm,
kind of how I approach PPC and other certain events that allow me to explore a little bit. Like at PPC, you're not having to be like, you got to be the best photographer to attend this, or you're going to go learn photography. This is what I love about events and things that take me outside of my current zones, whatever those are.
mm.
And so when I was sitting in another class, we were, well, Sarah Lando's class, you go play, right? You just go play with stuff.
I love Sarah
And
Lando.
I missed your class because I probably would have really enjoyed it looked like there was a lot of quiet and thinking time involved
Hmm.
in yours. And a lot for me, I don't know if you're similar, but life can get kind of loud. Like you're in work mode. You're just like you're running, you're 5 miles a minute to 50 miles per hour, and it's like it's a way to slow down when you're doing things that require you to think and not speak and go out and run around and do things kinetically. So
Hmm.
I kind of am sad that I missed your class, but at the same time it was going on, I found myself watching the people that were in your class. Because I was like, this seems like a good moment to just be like observant, I guess is what I'm
Mm.
trying to say, which is not normal for me. I have to go do something. I got to go feel like I'm accomplishing something, or I got to go do this and I got to do that. And I want to have this project or this project. And then at that moment, I was like, you know what? It's okay to just kind of sit here for a second. And so I watched
Hmm.
everybody doing that, and I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, I fail to take my own advice at times.
Right?
But yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to show people, like the benefits of that side of poetry where you can kind of just go and take a moment and just observe the world around you. I mean, what a location we had for that as well, right? We were very
Yeah.
lucky. We had an amazing sort of, it was a university, but I think if I remember rightly, the history of it, it used to be a country manor or something. And so there was space, ample of space for people to either go and venture out in the gardens. I know I can't remember who it was, but I remember watching the sort of end of festival film, and there were photos of people sitting in trees with their journal and stuff. I thought that's amazing. I love that. So we were lucky with the place that we were at, but yeah, that was my aim to go there and show you guys. Poetry is a great art form, but there's also this therapeutic side of it, and it can ground you if you let it.
Yeah, and I guess that would lead me into with your work hats and the various things that you're involved in, how does that manifest for you back when you're back at home? Like, how do you find your little moments like that where you're off kind of doing these little, moments where you're like just you? You're not trying to perform for anybody, you're not working, you're just kind of being who you are. Do you have those spaces or those
At
times?
the moment, it's not really happening. I'm very unhealthy in that sense. There was a very confronting moment for me at PPC
Yeah.
um, about addictions, right? You remember? I won't go into it
Yes.
too much, but
Yes.
the work addiction, and that was like I need to confront that when I get back, and I didn't, but I still need to do that. Unfortunately, I'm so wrapped up in things at the minute that I'm not finding the pockets of space. So again, I don't take my own advice. So please don't listen don't listen to what I'm saying now. Listen to what Adam was trying to show all of you back at PPC.
Or you're
Um,
reminding us right now how important it is to address it. Even if we're together
hmm,
for 20 or 30 minutes, we're taking this time to sit with each other, which I think is also important.
this is very true. Yeah, this is very true.
Yeah.
And that again, that's one of the big things that I took away from PPC because after that, I think it was the second night, I did drop work mode and I did get to remember what it was like to just be, Brooke and everyone there. You were so welcoming and supporting, and it was hard to ignore it. And it's very infectious, and I've made great friends. And I've seen Julian twice since PPC.
Aww.
um Sarah, I speak to Sarah a lot, and you yourself, Genevieve, and everyone. So it's just it was such a wonderful time, and it reminded me of how to just be a creative human around other creative humans, and it was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and we always joke about how it always feels too short or too long, and we're always walking away saying, "Oh, it just feels like not enough time." There's just not enough time.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like we
true.
have to come back. It's like we have to come back from Wonderland or Never Never Land or whatever.
It is true. It was quite a bubble, wasn't it? It was
Mhm.
quite a bubble, lovely bubble, and I want to jump back in, just live in that
Absolutely.
bubble.
Absolutely. Chasing the bubbles. Yes, absolutely. And, so a lot of what I talk about on the podcast too is how we compartmentalize our life. And we've already talked about how many of us are unhealthy in that way anyway, because we're obsessed with work. We're doing all different kinds of things. And, I'm guilty of that as well. Is there something in particular you're working on right now that you are super excited about and passionate about that we could hear about today?
Uh yeah, I mean I'm literally on Sunday I have to submit a funding bid, but it's all tied in with the laureateship. It's just we've the laureateship's only been running since May, and we've
Hmm.
done so many crazy things with it, and it's just making sure that we continue with that in 2025. So we're trying to work with we've got local museums on board to write a book of poems about local history and stuff. But
Ooh.
what I'm really excited about is to really take the youth program that we want to do, and showing, if you remember in my talk, like the reason I'm so passionate and obsessive about poetry and do I'm doing as much as I am doing is because of my history with, hey, hi, hello.
He's hanging out.
Is
Yes, with
because
the
my
youth.
history with poetry, I hated it in school, and I went to one class and never went back. I used to go and sit on the back field in school. It wasn't until I wrote my first poem for my first partner I realized how fun it was. And so I always think to myself, what if I never wrote that first poem? I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. I would have hated poetry for the rest of my life. So the youth stuff that we're planning to do next year is just showing younger people the fun side of expressing yourself through poetry. And then after you've sort of caught the bug, then we'll start introducing the technique and how you might do it differently and stuff. But to begin with, just making it fun. And yeah, I'm really excited for that. So hopefully we get the funding for it next year.
No, that's amazing. Like we have a lot of programs. Just for everybody who needs to be reminded, I'm in the Texas area. There's a lot of creatives that I know that they really, it's almost like reaching back to your younger self. Like, what would you give your younger self? Like,
Mm,
in any art form that I've been involved in, I'm like, what would I do with younger versions of myself, and what would I encourage myself in even as an adult? Like, I can go back and I can encourage my child who's 7 years old, who is in everything. She's in dance right now. She learns choreography way better than I can, and I appreciate that. And I also know that she can draw, she can take instruction, she can do all kinds of things that I felt like I was born to do as well in the beginning stages of life. Like I don't know if there was any other things you were involved in when you were younger, but it's like I know that one thing that I think it was my first grade or kindergarten teacher said that the mark I had on my card was she's very creative and very messy. And I'm
nice.
like, I feel like that's just my whole life. That's my whole life. Literally, I'm very creative and I'm very messy, and I own
Yeah.
that.
Excellent. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to do, yeah, I wanted to do performing arts for the longest time. Acting was my thing for the longest time, until I discovered writing, and
Yeah.
it just took over almost instantly, and I never looked back. I used to always make stories. I have this wonderful story from my mother who said she told me that she used to sit outside my door for hours just listening to me playing with my toys and making the stories with my toys.
Ooh.
I never knew she was there. She never made herself known. She would just sit there and listen. I used to love making stories up with my toys and stuff. Um, I come from a line of, I think I said it at PPC, I come from a line of painters and stuff, and that wasn't my jam. So I guess poetry is my creative thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I've tried several creative mediums myself, and I can draw, but does it give me that joy factor? Not really. Like
Hmm.
I remember I spent 8 hours on a self-portrait, and I was like, I am literally wanting 8 hours of my life back. Yes, it turned out amazing, but I'm like, this is not enjoyable.
Right, right. And you gotta love it, right? You
You
have to
gotta at least
love it.
enjoy it a little bit.
Well, yeah, yeah, I guess even just a little bit, but
Yeah, because I mean, it's very rare, and I think maybe everybody else watching and listening, it's just not very often you by somebody like you that is heavily involved in poetry and writing and things that I don't necessarily do. But I do things differently in writing. Like I'll write, say, an article or a quote or something, and my lights just went off. That's weird. They went down. So it's like I write, but I don't write creatively. I just write as if I was telling a story to help somebody, or, it's not like I'm thinking about the words and how, like, I again, that exercise where everybody was just observing, and I'm like, I kind of occasionally I think I want to do that every once in a while. Like maybe I'll start doing that this next year and just be like, okay, now just pick a time of the day to sit down and observe something.
hmm.
And then write about it.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, I'm not
That's
going
the
to get
start.
graded on it. I mean, sometimes people do it because they need to have like some sort of a success sticker with it. Like you need a gold
Mm.
star for being a creative when really sometimes you just need to be creative.
Yeah, I think do you know what I'm finding a lot? The key seems to be for most people that I come in contact with and try and show the doors, open the doors to poetry for. A lot of it is kind of just giving it a go and just get the permission. I use the word permission a lot. A lot
Yeah.
of people get so intimidated by the word poetry or the thought of poetry. I don't know what the education system is like in the States when it comes to poetry, but here in the UK, it leaves a lot to be desired.
Mm.
And I would say 90% of the people that come to my sort of workshops in the morning all have the same story as me. Oh yeah, I hated it in school. It was so boring. It didn't ignite anything, and I never thought poetry could be for me. And there's so many different sides to poetry. There is a fun side to poetry, believe it or not, folks. And that's my mission, is to show people that fun side and different side. And 9 times out of 10, people go, "Oh wow," and they'll come back week after week to learn a little bit more. It's kind of how you present it, I guess, as a facilitator.
Yeah, there is something about, like you just said, giving permission to others because they might not even realize they need permission, right? Like they're so in their head about it because it's been presented to them in a negative way or a way that is more performative, like a trajectory of a path, like as a career or something, when it could just be an option to be sort of, I don't even want to say a hobby, that doesn't even sound right either, but when it comes to expressing yourself in words, but just a path that you could enjoy and just
Hmm.
have the permission to enjoy it. It doesn't even have to lead anywhere at first, especially at first. You're just like, let me just go play with this idea.
Yeah, exactly. No, but that's so true. That's so true. I think let me play. That's a key word there. I think play with it. Let me play with this idea. Let's see what happens. I say, oh, I come from a line of painters, but that's not me. But maybe that's because my idea of being a painter is a certain style, right? But there's
Yeah.
a style over here that I don't even know about, but I might connect with more. Be like, oh, I'm going to paint in this style, and then boom, actually, that fuels a fire in me, and let's investigate that a little bit further.
Yeah, and I realized that some of the creative forums that I've pursued for, we'll call it play or for fun, was almost sometimes out of desperation. Like I remember one time I got laid off from a job and I had 2 weeks of unemployment. So I was like, what am I going to do with myself after I've job hunted all day? Well, I'm going to sit down and paint stuff. I ended up just painting stuff. It wasn't even on a canvas. It was like I tore up an old shower curtain and I painted on a shower curtain.
That's amazing.
Believe it or not, I still have a couple of those. They remind me of that time of my life. It was very abstract and very not, hang it in a gallery. But the point is like I made something and it just kind of stuck with me. And actually, no, I take that back. I have like two sitting in my living room right now that I just randomly painted. And then
Nice.
there's one behind me in my studio. It used to be my photography studio. And my husband had this, he was in his own way creative, had made his own projector screen and he painted a black border to make it a frame. And when he didn't need it anymore, I said, well, can I use it and paint a picture on it or paint some stuff on it? And so I did. It was like the largest abstract painting I've ever done.
Nice.
So
There you
repurposing
go.
all that stuff, right? Like taking things, taking ideas and just repurposing it and continuing to let yourself play with ideas. Who knows? You too could hang on to stuff for 19 years.
But there's value in that. I think I have this terrible habit, and I think it's common in a lot of creatives and artists of just hating your old work. And the book I have, it came out in 2021. It's called The Early Hours. That is literally the message behind that book. At least that's what I want
Ooh.
the message to be. It's like, you know, you have to start somewhere, right? And as difficult as it is, and I still do it. I give this advice out, but I'm still, uh, an offender of it as well myself. But it's okay to start from over here and do a slow journey that gets you up to here. And then when you're up here, there's a journey that's going to take you further up here, and that's okay. It's okay to, I think there's a mindset amongst a lot of people that you have to, if you start something, if you start poetry, if you start photography, if you start painting, you have to be an immediate master at it. And so that's what my book was trying to demonstrate and say to people, don't throw your old work away. Don't hate it. You can kind of cringe it, but if you're cringing, it's a good thing. It means that you've learned and you've progressed. And you know, try not to throw it out and hate your earlier work, because that was you in that moment, and it's precious because, as I say, you've evolved from that moment.
Yeah, and for those of us in photography, we can clearly tell the difference in our work from the previous years versus to now, which is fascinating because when I see others and they're like, "Oh, I did this in this year." And I was like, "Yeah, but it looks amazing." Like, you went from good to really, really good, and I went from, "Oh my God," to I'm still pretty cool. And I think it's so funny to look back at some of my previous work. And you know what I've done to repurpose some of my old work is I've tossed it in to talk about it every once in a while because there's a lot of work that I'm still very proud of that the world hasn't even seen because you know how you think that maybe your work sucks in this time of your life and it makes sense maybe 10 years down the road to reuse that in a talk or reuse
Mm,
that in a communication with your students or with people around you where you're like, I never showed this work because I was embarrassed from it or I didn't think anybody would get it. But all of a sudden, 10 years now, 10 years forward, you know how to talk about it. Like
mm,
whatever you were trying to express then, now you can talk about it. It's like one of those things where you're like, and I don't know about you, but like, I am, well, and you probably don't know that many photographers, but a lot of photographers plan a lot for their photo shoots and they have meanings within meanings within meanings. And I've been the opposite. I'm like, let me just go create and I'll make up a story later. That's kind of how I've
fair enough. Fair enough.
been.
Um, for the record, when you said, photographers, it's very easy to see the progression. I
It
mean,
feels like it.
with poetry too, when I read my first poems, I'm like, oh gosh, I've rhymed love with dove how many times? um, but yeah, it's okay. It's okay. And it's okay to cringe at it. I'm not saying you should, you know, you can't cringe at it because it's a natural reaction. But what I'm saying is like don't hate it so much that you're ashamed of it, because that was you in that moment, and it's all a journey, it's all a progression,
And I
and
think
that's the fun of it.
that is such a beautiful way to like look back at your life too. It's like a tangible, what do they call them? Like these benchmarks in your life or these pinpoints in your life where this is where I was then, this is where I am now, and this is where I could go in the future, kind of a thing. So I think it's just the joy about the creative process and being a creative. And I love how we all are so different. And I think that's the
Mm.
beautiful thing. And I know that our talk is already starting to wind down to the last few minutes. I hate that we have to say goodbye
Oh
soon.
no,
I know I've gotten the 10-minute warning. Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry. I hope I didn't go on
Ah!
a too many tangents. I tend to do that.
So what I really also wanted to talk about is that we shared another moment that nobody at PPC has ever done with me because until a year ago I didn't want to do these kinds of things, but it's called flash tattoos. And so here's the thing, like a friend of mine last year in Vegas, she's like, "Hey, let's go do these $10 tattoos in Vegas. They got this shop. It's a legitimate tattoo shop." And I was like, that sounds great. So over the last year, I've just been, as soon as I knew I was going to be traveling to the UK, to Ireland, to a variety of different cities, I just started adding like flash tattoos as a little kind of like a side thing. So when I met you in the hallway and you're like, "Hey, do we have time to go get a tattoo?" And I was laughing because I researched like 3 or 4 tattoo studios. None of them took walk-ins. So
Yeah,
Adam and I almost had the chance to get tattoos together.
came that close.
We were this close, really. If Brooke only hadn't made you model. No,
Yeah, yeah, I had to jump in a pond.
yeah. So
Um,
everybody listening who has never been, so Adam ended up modeling, lost a shoe apparently. Do you want to tell them that story real quick before we get into tattoos?
yeah, sure. It wasn't even my shoe. It was one of the
It was Dove's
it was
shoe,
one of
right?
yeah, yeah, I feel so bad. Yeah, so I jumped in a pond in a white shirt, being the poet. I had a bouquet of
Yes.
flowers.
Yes.
Um, I was told, that's the initiation. And I remember on the morning of, I think it was I had sort of been prepped for it. So I don't know if it
Yeah.
was a discussion that had been had before beforehand, but I was sort of prepped for it. It might happen. And then on the morning of the shoot, Brooke came and sat down next to me. It was like, "So you fancy going into a pond?" And so I did. And the mud, as soon as I stepped in, the mud like went right up to my kneecaps. I wasn't joking. I could not move. I couldn't move to get closer to Fran
Oh my
or
gosh.
anybody. And then trying to get out, I was actually starting to get a bit panicked. Like, I don't think I can get out of this. And eventually I managed to get a big branch and we got me out. But yeah,
Oh
unfortunately
my
there's still a
gosh.
shoe at the bottom of that pond. So we're
Oh,
still there technically. PPC is still at
yes,
that
we left a piece
university.
of ourselves behind. That was the running joke there too.
Yeah.
So
And then
great.
and then I took a long, cold walk back to the manor. And I was getting changed in the toilet, and the gentleman whose shoe I'd lost came looking for me, and I just heard this voice as I'm in the stool getting changed, like, Adam, have you got my shoe?" I was like, "It's still in the pond, I'm afraid."
Oh my gosh. Yes. And so like it was so many great memories of all these creative times. And so you and I were having like this discussion and just like, getting these tattoos after we all left each other this summer. And so you got to tell me about these new tattoos that you just got.
um, I don't know if it's. I have a ghost because
Yeah.
I'm into like paranormal stuff, and then I got Peter Pan as well
That is so
because I used to
fun.
love Peter Pan as a kid, and I try to live my life. Not that I do a very good job of it these last few years, but I try and live my life not to be Mr. Banks, not to be the grown up. Try and have a bit of fun and
Mm.
keep a bit of that innocence. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult um, in this day and age. But that's what I try and do. So that's my little reminder to
It's a
never
great
grow old.
reminder. Yeah. And what was the story that had you been sitting on those for a while to go get them?
Oh yes, there's a whole story behind this. Sorry, that might
Yeah.
have been a good idea. Um, So I run these hubs, and my best friend came to one morning, and so I really love Halloween. Halloween is my thing, right? I think it is yours too.
We
And
enjoy
so
it,
I
yes.
yeah, I get Halloween presents rather than Christmas presents. I ask people to send me Halloween presents. And so I'm doing my morning workshop, and my best friend's here, and she's sort of getting a bit anxious. She's looking at the clock. She's looking at the clock. She's like, we got to go. We got to go." So I wrap everything up, and she starts walking me through the high street, and then she pulls me into a tattoo parlor. It's like, cool. She has the designs that I want. And I'm like, wait, are you serious? Like, are you serious? Yeah, we're getting a tattoo. And so that's how those two came about. I didn't even know. They were a surprise Halloween present.
That is amazing. That's
Yeah.
even better than planning it and pre-planning it. That's just you're like, we're in here, we're going.
Yeah. And it wasn't even me. It wasn't even my spontaneous
Right?
decision. It was someone else's. But yeah, I
Right?
cherish them even more so because they came from my best friend. So
That's amazing. That is such a great story. That is so sweet. Um, yeah, so as we're rounding out the conversation, I usually tend to take a couple of minutes to, if we could leave somebody with something today, an inspiration, a little poem, I don't know, anything at all today that we can leave them in the last few minutes we have together.
goodness me. Um, I would say, oh, this is putting me on the spot. I would say trust your instinct, trust your passion, follow your heart, and do as I did in PPC on day two. Just let go of whatever you think is appropriate. Just let it go. Just follow your instinct and be happy.
Yes.
I don't
And
know. That was very on the spot, but
I'm gonna chime in on that and say the most beautiful thing that we can do is give the gift of ourselves to the world.
yes.
And that means drop. I love that you shared that you dropped the walls and you dropped anything that else you needed to drop in order to be there with us because it made a difference when you joined us instead of just kind of like not joining us.
Mhm. And
Just
can I
letting
add
us,
something really quick to what you just
yes,
added? Um, if you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, but that's difficult for me," that's okay. That's valid. It
absolutely.
takes a lot of work, and it does take some bravery to do. I say it like it's an easy thing. It's not,
Not easy.
but you can do it.
Absolutely. You know, if I just thank you again, Adam, for coming on today. I'm so excited to see you. I'm so excited to hang out with you in a different format than our normal other formats. I'm gonna try to make it to one of your YouTube streams at some point too. I think it'd be super fun to just sit there and try something new.
Yeah,
So I
please
have some
do.
downtime coming up for, I have work, but then I'm gonna have a little bit of downtime. So I'm gonna, take some time to explore in the new year, I think. So
Excellent. I will
all
gladly have
right.
you. I'll see you
All
in the
right.
chat
So, and,
box.
and I will post this as soon as possible so everybody else can see how wonderful poetry can be for themselves. And I will make sure they have all your information to connect with you. And we hope you enjoy this episode because it's just fabulous to connect with other people of all walks of life, telling all of their stories and all the cool things. So we'll see you on the next episode, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.